Before we continue with the next parable, we're taking an important detour, not because we're leaving the parables behind, but because the parables have led us here. They opened a door that reveals something deeper, and that something deeper is what physicists call the block universe. This episode explains why we're stepping into physics, how it fits Jesus' worldview, and why this series is the natural next step after the perception parables. Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome back to Biblical Reality Check. I want to establish that I didn't go looking for physics when I began thinking about starting this channel. I went looking for meaning and unexpectedly found a physics model that matches the structure of Jesus' teaching with eerie precision. It's called the theory of the block universe. It doesn't match because Jesus was doing physics. It matches because he was describing how reality works, and physics is finally catching up to him. I am doing this series because the perception based reality that Jesus teaches and the fixed space time reality that Einstein describes mirror each other in ways that are too precise to ignore. The perception parables opened the door. The Block Universe series will walk right through it. Before we go any further, though, I want to show you how the next part of this channel is organized, because what we're about to explore is expansive and it needs a clear structure. We're breaking the next videos into 3 parts, each one building on the last. Section 1 is the physics of reality. This section is pure science, no spirituality and no consciousness talk, just Einstein. In this section, we explore relativity, space-time, world lines, entropy, the nature of time, why the future already exists, why the present is just your current slice of time, and why your entire life is a fixed structure in space-time. This section of the series gives you the map for the physical structure of reality. Section 2 is where we will shift from physics to the architecture of consciousness. This section of videos is built from Jesus' teachings, Carl Jung's concept of individuation, systems theory, our own lived experience, and the physics foundation established in Section 1. Here, we explore how consciousness functions as the primary medium of reality, the individuation of consciousness, the hierarchy of systems, why consciousness is not inside space-time, but why space-time is inside consciousness, why your world line is the story your consciousness experiences, why death ends the character you inhabit in physical space, but not the consciousness itself, why unity never erases individuality, and why awakening is ultimately a shift in identification. Section 2 establishes the experiential framework. In other words, the conscious self that interprets and navigates the structure outlined in the videos making up Section 1. Then Section 3 is where everything comes together. As we will show in the previous 2 sections, physics gives you the structure and consciousness gives you the experiencer. In this final section, Jesus gives you the meaning. We will explore the kingdom of God as a state of perception, awakening as recognition, not achievement, judgment as revelation, not punishment, eternal life as identification with consciousness, destiny as the unfolding of your true nature, truth as liberation, how unity is achieved without the loss of individuality, and your legacy as the eternal witness. This final section gives you the purpose. This structure matters because Section 1 tells you what reality is, Section 2 tells you who you are inside that reality, And section 3 tells you why it matters. Once you see how these 3 layers fit together, the parables become instructions for awakening instead of just moral stories. And the block universe stops being physics. It becomes the structure of your life. We will go into so much more detail as the series progresses, but for now, just know that the block universe says the following: 1, the past still exists. 2, the present exists as your current slice of time. 3, the future already exists. And 4, consciousness moves through time like a traveler moving through a landscape. Let me give you 3 simple analogies that may help you understand this concept. Example number 1, a movie reel. Imagine a movie reel. The entire movie already exists, the beginning, the middle, and the end. When you watch it, you experience the story one frame at a time, but your viewing does not create the next scene. The ending is already part of the film, even though you have not yet reached it. According to the block universe, your life is similar. You do not create the future by arriving there. You simply experience one part of an already existing timeline, one moment after another. Example number 2, a map. Now imagine a map. The entire map exists all at once, every road, every town, and every destination. You do not create the map by walking through it. You discover what is already there. The future in the block universe is similar. From your present perspective, the future is unseen, but in the block universe, it is not unreal. It already exists as part of the larger landscape of space-time. For example, imagine walking north toward a town. Eventually, you reach that town, not because it suddenly came into existence, but because it was already there long before you arrived. In the same way, your future experiences may already exist within space time, even though you have not encountered them yet. Example number 3, a novel. Finally, imagine a novel. Every chapter already exists within the book. The author is not writing chapter 12 while you read chapter 11. The entire story is already complete, yet you experience the story one page at a time. When you finally reach chapter 12, you don't say, "I created chapter 12." You say, "I finally arrived there." The block universe suggests that reality may work in a similar way. Consciousness is like the reader moving through the story of life, while the entire narrative already exists within the greater structure of space-time. Reality itself is fixed, while perception remains fluid. The perception parables taught us that seeing changes experience, that awareness transforms reality, and that awakening is not the creation of something new, but the recognition of what was there all along. They showed us that the kingdom is present before it is perceived, and that judgment is not punishment imposed from the outside, but the unveiling of what is already true. These ideas prepare us for the block universe, because the block universe is, in many ways, the physics version of what Jesus was already describing. Consider the parable of the hidden treasure. The treasure doesn't come into existence when the man discovers it. It was already buried in the field. The field didn't change. His perception changed. In fact, had he walked through that same field a week earlier, he might have passed directly over the treasure without ever noticing it, not because the treasure was absent, but because his awareness was not yet ready to see it. Our awakening works the same way. We don't create truth, we recognize it. Or consider the parable of the net. The net gathers every kind of fish. Nothing is added, nothing is removed. The final sorting doesn't change what's in the net, it simply reveals what was already there from the beginning. Our lives work the same way. What is exposed in the end is not something newly created. It's what has always been present beneath the surface. Taken together, these two parables point toward a profound pattern. Reality precedes recognition, and truth precedes discovery. The world is not waiting for us to create it, it's waiting for us to see it. And that is precisely the perspective that makes the block universe easier to understand. The block universe is not merely an abstract theory about time, it changes the way we understand regret, forgiveness, destiny, and suffering. Because once we understand that consciousness unfolds in stages, we begin to see that much of life is not about failure, but rather development. Let's consider regret. Many of us look back on our past and think, "Ugh, I wish I had done that differently." But the person who did that then is not the person you are today. At that moment, you didn't possess the insight you now have. You didn't have the same confidence or mental and emotional tools to do otherwise. You were acting from the level of consciousness available to you at that time. If your present awareness had existed in that earlier moment, you would almost certainly have done differently. But it didn't, and so you couldn't. What you now call regret may have been part of the process that produced the wisdom you currently possess. You were not doing something then to regret later. You were forming the person you are now. Let's look at forgiveness. We often look at people who hurt us and think they should have treated me better, and in many cases they should have. But understanding does not require excusing. At that moment, they may have been acting from fear, immaturity, confusion, limitation, or wounds they had never learned to heal. Their behavior emerged from the level of consciousness available to them. Had their awareness been healthier, their actions would likely have been healthier as well. But it wasn't, and so they couldn't give you what they did not yet possess. This realization doesn't erase responsibility, but it can soften bitterness because we begin to see people not only as causes of pain, but as participants in their own unfinished development. Finally, let's look at suffering. Perhaps the hardest question we ask is, why did this have to happen to me? No answer can remove the reality of pain, but often when we look back, we discover that suffering became a teacher. The challenges we never would have chosen deepened us in ways comfort never could. The losses clarified what truly mattered. The struggles exposed strengths we didn't know we possessed. The wounds taught compassion for others who carry similar pain. What seemed meaningless in the moment often becomes intelligible only in retrospect. The pain was real, but it was not necessarily random. It was formative. Many of the strengths you carry today were forged in experiences you once wished had never occurred. Seen in this way, the block universe invites a radically different perspective on life. The person you were, the person you are, and the person you are becoming are all connected within a single unfolding story. Growth happens in stages. Awareness arrives in layers. And what often appears to be failure, delay, or chaos may, from a larger perspective, be part of the process by which consciousness becomes fully itself. In the episodes ahead, we'll explore what Einstein actually discovered, why time may not be what we think it is, and what consciousness means inside a universe where past, present, and future all coexist. We'll examine how the block universe sheds new light on the teachings of Jesus, how the parables fit this model, and how the larger biblical story can be understood through the same lens. We'll explore what awakening means in a block universe, what judgment means in a block universe, and what destiny means in a block universe. Most importantly, we'll ask what it means to live consciously within a reality that may already be far more complete than we can imagine. And when we eventually return to the parable series, we'll do so with new eyes, because the parables are not merely stories, they are maps of consciousness. Well, I invite you to join me as we begin our journey into the Block universe, where physics, consciousness, and spiritual awakening may be telling the same story from different perspectives. See you there. Thanks for watching.